After spending a week in Australia, and after a month of vlogs, it's time to put a wrap on that trip. I spent a full week in Sydney and the Gold Coast, got to visit 4 parks, rode 16 coasters, and today I'm gonna give the final verdict. These are all the coasters I rode in Australia, ranked from worst to best. Before I left, I released my top 10 most anticipated coasters. I'm going to show where all these coasters rank pre-trip, and now see how close I was in that prediction. Before we get started, if you can drop this video a like, I'd appreciate it. It helps with the YouTube algorithm. And also, give me a sub if you're new here and love coaster content. Number 16, Kenny's Forest Flyer at Dreamworld. This is a Vekoma Hang & Bang. They always live up to the name, but some of these models aren't as bad as the others. Sometimes you get the ones with wide set restraints that are far away from your head, and in the case of Kenny's Forest Flyer, that's what you got. But then, those restraints come directly down your shoulders, and for me, I was in searing pain the whole ride. There was nowhere to run and hide, I just had to sit there and take it, enjoying the sweet relief when the restraint was released. Definitely the least pleasant experience on the trip. Number 15, Little Nipper at Luna Park. This was my first coaster in Australia, my first coaster in the Southern Hemisphere. And I rode it first because I don't like waiting in line with a bunch of other kids for a kid's ride. It's basically a lift and a spiral into the brakes. This may sound stupid, but I thought maybe it would pull some good laterals in the back. I've ridden some small coasters at the fairground that whip you around pretty good, but this one didn't. Understandable, it's a coaster for kids, but I would still have enjoyed some whip. Number 14, SpongeBob's Boating School Blast at SeaWorld. There's not much to say about this one. It's your classic Zamperla gravity coaster, definitely made for kids, but we did find the restraints are a bit different. These had T-bars, and they were more accommodating to adults. You don't have to cram your legs in quite as bad. This drops through a ring of fire before its helix, then it goes back to the station. Unlike Little Nipper, this does pull some laterals, so it got the higher spot. Number 13, Big Red Boat at Dreamworld. I didn't even mention this coaster on my pre-trip list. It opened right before Christmas, and it wasn't open when I made that video. This is a Zamperla power coaster, going through 2 helices, not really picking up or losing any speed. And some people may even say, because it's powered, it's not even a coaster. I get it, you may have a point, but I waited in line for it. I rode it, so I'm counting it. It's an enjoyable experience. The second helix gives it some extra length to make it more legit, so I like it. Dreamworld needed a coaster for small kids. Number 12, Storm Coaster at SeaWorld. This is a Mock Rides water coaster, the same one I rode at Jur Summerland in Scatuan. And if you know me, you know I am not down with the water coaster. I did not get that wet in Scatuan, so I was optimistic for Storm Coaster. And after waiting in a sweltering indoor queue with 0 ventilation, I honestly wouldn't have minded getting soaked. In the end, I got sprayed a bit in the 3rd row, but that was it. I heard this has good theming after the drop, but it was pretty weak, just to turn back to the station. That being said, it was interesting how the splash is inside. Normally, the parks like to advertise the splash as the selling point. For the most part, this looks like a normal coaster. The dirty little secret of the water is hidden. I got the credit, it wasn't anything special. Number 11, Road Runner Roller Coaster at Warner Bros. Movie World. This is their one coaster that's kid-friendly, and it's not exactly suitable for small kids. It's a Vekoma Junior coaster, the 335-meter version, just like Woodstock Express at Cedar Point. And at 43 feet tall, that's a pretty good family coaster. It got new trains not long ago. It was super comfortable. It had surprising force around the turns. It was very smooth, and it was by far the best kids/family coaster on the trip. Number 10, Moto Coaster at Dreamworld. I almost put this in the top 10 before, but I left it out. Everyone said this ride is awful, so uncomfortable, and before getting on the ride, I had to try the test seat. As you can see, it didn't go well. My expectations were low. We got on the ride, and honestly, I didn't hate it. It wasn't very long, it ran pretty slow. It was just a bunch of wide turns, and people hate it because you ride it on your knees, but it was alright. Not the most pleasant position to ride in, but I can think of worse. If you want to spare yourself the embarrassment or the pain, try to ride the sidecar in the back 2 rows. That has its own separate line, but just a warning, that only loads 4 people per train, so you're going to be waiting for a while. I didn't hate Moto Coaster, but it wasn't very good either. Number 9, Boomerang at Luna Park. Moving up 1 spot for my pre-trip rankings. This is the one coaster I chose over Moto Coaster, and turns out I was right. This Gerstlauer family boomerang is the same one they have at Adventure City in Anaheim. This uses a chain to take you back and drop you down. Then it wraps around the footpaths below it, twisting and weaving around until it hits the second spike. This one having booster wheels, then it drops you down to do it all again. It's a great coaster for everyone to enjoy. Not very intense, but the backward section has a bit of a gut punch to it. And even though I didn't love it, I still enjoyed it. Number 8. Jet Rescue at SeaWorld. People said I was sleeping on Jet Rescue, but I did admit I was looking forward to it. 2 launches, low to the ground elements. This barely rises up at all. It has quick transitions, and that's the kind of thing I like. The 2 things I noticed off the bat were its length and speed. It has a very short ride time, and I felt it wasn't going as fast as it should be. I heard I may have gotten a slow ride. If that's the case, I'm sorry, but I only rode once and I got what I got. If this sped up just a bit, it would be a lot better, but that wouldn't fix how short it is. I still like the elements and the concept of hugging the ground. Number 7. Gold Coaster at Dreamworld. I definitely overrated this. It was number 6 on my pre-trip list, dropping it to number 7, and it really wasn't what I expected. I thought maybe that first drop would give a nice pop of airtime in the back. That didn't happen. I got as much airtime as I get on Goliath's first drop at Magic Mountain, 0. That was disappointing, but then it ran through its course of twists and turns before ending with 2 inversions. It seems to pick up speed the whole course, and those inversions are pretty crazy. This was built for Luna Park, so it's got a weird compact layout, moving to Dreamworld in 2001, so you get what you get. I didn't hate it, I didn't love it, it was just there. This is the only aero looper that I know that uses new vest restraints, so it has that going for it also. Number 6. Green Lantern at Warner Bros. Movie World. I guess this was closed for a month before I got there, so I was lucky to ride it. These SNS El Loco coasters are awesome. So much force and whip in a small package, and this combines the awesome layout of Steel Hog with the awesome restraints of El Loco. Just a lap bar, going down to 3rd steepest drop in the world, 120.5 degrees. That had a ton of kick to it. Aside from the drop, 2 elements really stood out. One was the dive loop. So much hang time and such a huge head rush. And then the downward slope inline twist. You start that one so slow. You get some hang time while you're picking up speed and getting whip. With a lap bar, that's a glorious experience. This ride was down more than it was up, so I only got 1 ride. But I was very happy with it, even though it dropped from number 5 on my last list to number 6. Number 5. Big Dipper at Luna Park. Definitely one of my more slept-on coasters. I didn't have high expectations. This looked like a mild version of the RMC Raptor. Slower, more drawn out, even with that tire launch, so I had it number 7. The first time I rode it, I knew I was wrong about it. It didn't hold back. It starts with 2 launches, the second one being the real powerhouse. Then it goes into a non-inverting loop and a sidewinder. This very impressive looking set of elements that's visible all over the park. In the back, this is also where it gets super shaky. Really weird for a new coaster and doesn't seem like something that should be happening. In the front, you don't notice this at all. Then, you got a sharp ejector airtime hill. That's awesome in all rows. And a low to the ground twister section, punctuated by a corkscrew. I rode this 3 times, 2 in the back, 1 in the front, and the front was more fun. Seeing the track in front of you, getting a smoother ride, maybe losing some whip, but the rest made up for it. If you go, I recommend riding in the front and the back. Number 4. Steel Taipan at Dreamworld. This was number 3 in my list and didn't quite live up to expectations. I had never ridden a Blue Fire clone, and I know most enthusiasts think they're very mild, and after riding my first one, I get it. This one's a bit different from the others, having a multi-pass launch and a twisted back spike. That alone gives it an edge, but the rest of the ride didn't bring it the whole time. I love the backwards launch. The vertical loop is pretty big. The drop off the mid-course in the back has some good force, and that final inversion is fantastic. It's a great finale. Solid ride, but nothing special. But then, you've got the spinning back car. For just 25 Australian dollars, you can ride the spinning back car, and I say you have to do it. This may have been my favorite single ride experience in Australia. We got the tip to ride this by yourself in the back, throw off the weight balance, let it spin as much as possible, and it was bonkers. Between this and Time Traveler, give me this. It has such a dynamic layout for a spinning coaster, and it was well worth the money. I don't want to rank Steel Taipan based on this upcharged gimmick, but that doesn't mean you can't enjoy it. From all your comments, I understand the spinning back car is normally only available on the weekends, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, so we played it safe and went on a Saturday. Number 3. Superman Escape at Warner Bros. Movie World. This was number 2 on my list before the trip, an intimate accelerator, starting with a dark ride pre-show and launching into a pretty solid layout. First, that pre-show is pretty good, setting the scene for Superman pushing you out of the subway, up into the top hat. That launch gets you up to 62 miles an hour, and it's not lacking in power at all. Neither is that top hat. You get solid ejector in the back, and then you twist up into 2 more really good airtime moments. That was the good stuff. Now the bad. It still uses those hard Intamin over-the-shoulder restraints. Really dumb not to just have lap bars, considering it doesn't even go upside down. It was hard to enjoy the airtime when I was getting neck chopped on every turn. There's also the length. I thought the layout was a bit longer. I wasn't expecting it to have 2 airtime hills and be over. That being said, it's like Accelerator's 2 overbanks after the top hat, and I'll take the airtime hills over the overbanks any day. Number 2, Leviathan at SeaWorld. When it comes to wooden coasters, it's hard to tell if they're going to be good before you ride them. Leviathan is a large-scale gravity group woody. It's got those Timberliner trains, 105 feet in height and almost 3,300 feet of track. I was optimistic, and some people even ranked this number 1 in the whole country. I wouldn't go that far, but it exceeded my expectations. The first drop was great. It focused on a lot of quick dips that offered a lot of airtime, and the whole thing was compact and out of control. I couldn't believe how much airtime they crammed in there, and I was definitely satisfied. The only problem is the roughness, and once again, you got a new gravity group that's already running rough. It's not enough to ruin the ride. It's not as bad as Mindblower in 2021, but I would compare it to Thunder Coaster at Tusenfryd. Maybe not that bad either, but it's close. It's enough to make you want to reconsider a re-ride. We did get one re-ride in the backward-facing seat, that also being 25 Australian dollars to try, and it was just madness. Sometimes the forces get lost when you ride backwards, but I felt every airtime pop. The first drop was a huge gut punch, going straight down and getting all the drag from the rest of the train going over. And with that rough track, the whole thing was just chaotic. I don't think the back seat of Leviathan is a must-do, but if you can pay for it, give it a shot. Number 1, DC Rivals Hypercoaster at Warner Bros. Movie World. Like there was any doubt, DC Rivals is king. I have a full review on this coaster if you want to check it out. I'll give you the rundown here. I don't love twisted first drops, but this one works. Definitely the best twisted drop I've ridden. The first camelback gives mad sustained ejector. The non-inverting loop combines ejector and whip. And then you have the middle section. There are a couple good moments of force here, but some of this just seems like filler. This is the ride's one major flaw. But then you got the finale, and that's just 3 sharp airtime hills that launch you into New Zealand. I was afraid I wouldn't love the mock lap bars, but those were no problem. This also has a backward seat, and this one is a must-do. It's the most expensive back car experience in Australia, checking in at $30, but you gotta do it at least once. Twisting down over 200 feet backwards is just nutty, so is the non-inverting loop. Also, the last 2 airtime hills going backwards felt almost as crazy as the first drop. This is truly an elite coaster, well worth the trip to Australia alone, and it lives up to all the hype. I got to ride 16 coasters on the trip, but the only one I missed was Wild Mouse at Luna Park. I thought I was going to be able to see it, but it wasn't even there. They tore it down before they rebuilt it this year, so I had to miss out on that. That was number 8 in my pre-trip list, and I made that before I realized what was going on with it. Also of note, all the parks in the Gold Coast are very strict with loose articles. They don't allow you to have anything in your pockets when you ride, and they were most strict about this on DC Rivals. You never have to pay for a locker on any of these rides. Only Superman required one, and that was free. But if you don't like leaving your stuff in the station, you might want to consider getting an all-day locker. Even with zipper pockets, unlike pretty much everywhere else in the world, you can't ride with your stuff. That's a wrap on this video. Let me know what you think of this list, and if you've ridden these coasters, what you would change around. If you haven't, which ones are you most looking forward to riding? Before you go, don't forget to drop a like, and give me a sub for more content like this. Also, check out my second channel, Airtime Thrills Raw Footage. This is where you can find copyright-free off-ride footage, and my baseball channel, Home Run Productions. This is where I talk about all things baseball. Thank you all for watching, and I'll see you all next time.